Welcome to Masterpiece Theatre. Alistair Cook is off. I am your host, Ben Gherkin. Tonight, we dive into a new edition of an age-old classic involving boys and girls as they have trials and tribulations throughout their high school days. The title of our book today is the Liberty-Benton High School Handbook. As you notice, the beginning of the handbook discusses a Ralph Waldo Emerson quote, and it says, "What lies behind us and what lies before us are tiny matters compared to what lies within us." Enjoy today's discussion of the book, The Liberty-Benton Handbook.
We begin our adventure of the Liberty-Benton Handbook on page 1. You're asked for our story to follow along, so please, students, if you have your handbook in front of you, please follow along as we transition through the journey of a high school student. On page 1, you'll notice all the information pertaining to contact information of those at our high school. You'll also see our vision, our mission, a statement of the high school and of the district. Moving on to page 2, very important dates listed in our book. Our students' many adventures throughout the year take them from all types of exciting adventures, including 2-hour delays, in-service days, parent-teacher conferences, including end of winter break. Classes resume once we get back after the first of the year. Multiple days off, after maybe some days of snow and delay cancellations, and then our school day and year ends on May 27th. That is a tentative day, unless there are some exciting adventures that take place throughout the year. Moving forward, you'll notice throughout the day there are many things of our adventures of our students at Liberty-Benton, and they are listed alphabetically in the index. You also notice all our 2-hour delays and regular day schedules listed. So let's start discussing some of these adventures. It would be impossible to chronicle all the adventures of our students in our handbook, so we will just highlight some of the more interesting ones. Paying close attention to our students when they miss school on page 7 through 10, you'll notice the story led our students to check the attendance policy based on whether an absence was excused or unexcused, and the disciplinary consequence when students had excessive absences, noting that when a student misses 5 or more days, they are now on an attendance watch, and if an absent is not reported to the office within 3 days by either a note or a phone call, that student is unexcused. That unexcused absence, if they become excessive, will lead to disciplinary consequence. Our next adventure was when our student became a driver, and they drove to school and parked in our parking lot. All those students in those stories registered their vehicles. They followed the online links, registered their vehicles. Even if they had a prior registration, all students must re-register every year. Reminding students that qualify also that the free and reduced lunch prices, the information is on page 13, forms are handed out. Also on page 13, information about where our student ate. They ate in the cafeteria. The cafeteria has a closed policy, which means no outside people were to come visit the student during lunch, and no fast food were to be brought into that student. That student remained in our lunchroom the entire time. Moving on all the way to page 16, this is where our adventure gets a little scary. It's when students are in violation of our student discipline code. Follow closely through our students if they make A violations, where they were tardy to school, disrupted class, or the very infamous dress code violation. Many students misinterpret our dress code, but our dress code is very clear. There were images posted. There's discussions about our dress code. Students that fail to follow and violate any of the A violations earn detentions. If a student happens to be a B violator, their first offense most often is a Saturday school. And those Saturday schools, so adventurous that there are movies made. If a student ever would happen to make anything that would earn a C violation, suspension occurs. That suspension could be for multiple days. Oh, those students. Very, very interesting adventures for students that make those poor choices. The next interesting part were very graphic in our book. It involves when the students violated the dress code. Some of the more common issues that they had were when they wore holes in their jeans. Whether they were threadbare or tattered, it didn't matter. Those students were disciplined. Short shorts, running shorts. Inseams must have been 3 or 4 inches, 3 to 4 inches. If they weren't, they were in violation. Tank tops, cutoffs, the more popular shoulder open tops, those are all in violation if they do not go to the edge of the sleeve. Our students sometimes have so many troubles with those, including hats and sunglasses not to be worn at the school, and yoga pants. Only time they were allowed to be worn were when their backsides were covered, but sometimes those backsides were not covered. Or they acted like they were covered because they pulled a shirt down and stretched it, but as soon as the student moved, that shirt was not covering their backside. That is all in violation, and our students were disciplined. Students also had very many trials and tribulations with their cell phone. Those students that followed the rules, everything went well. But those students that did not had issues, and those issues were simple. They needed to understand the red, yellow, and green areas of our school. Green are where cell phones were acceptable when they transitioned between areas in a cafeteria, our hallways and study halls. Cell phones could be used. Music could not be played out loud. Headphones must have been used, but not in the hallway. No headphones were allowed in our hallway for our adventure. The yellow zones, but closer to red, were in our classrooms. Phones are not to be allowed in a classroom. Teachers must give permission for academic use of our phones, but that is only if the teacher gives permission. Just because a student is done with the assignment does not give them permission to get their cell phone out. And the red areas where all students know no cell phone should be used, that's the bathrooms and the locker rooms. Once our students navigated their way through our discipline code, they were wrought with many challenges which were given by their teachers in terms of assignments, and in those assignments were grades. They determined their grade average plan on page 34. Discussion then of the culmination of their high school career continues on page 35, discussing all the graduation requirements in terms of credits and classes and what those credits mean. Students also could earn an honors diploma in celebration of a job well done. Those honors diploma lists were on page number 36 and 37. Exam exemptions were earned by our most veteran students, and those exam exemptions were on page 38. Students that were involved in classes that could earn credit outside of our high school walls could earn the College Credit Plus. The College Credit Plus information is discussed on page 40. I want to also let students know that scheduling changes must occur within the first week of school. In fact, by the end of the first week. That is the Friday of the first week. Backpack violators, reminder that backpacks were only to be worn to and from school, and only cinch sacks that do not carry books were allowed throughout the school day. Our students were able to steer away from the nastiness of the drug issues. But there is a drug testing program which started on page 48 and covered many, many pages of the book. One thing that you'll notice, that after the students completed and followed all the information on page 61 of our student handbook, that's when the pages became very colorful, and the handbook has information in regards to class assignments. So we encourage students to utilize your planner to keep your assignments written down carefully. That led our students to have a very successful year, and their success led to more success, and that success led to more success, until the story was finally over, and our student had a great year.
And this concludes our review of the Liberty-Benton Handbook. I hope you've enjoyed our journey today as we've discovered many new and exciting adventures awaiting all students at Liberty-Benton High School. Have a great year.